If you go on social media, there's constantly challenges, design challenges, illustration challenges. You can even follow those hashtags like illustration challenge or design challenge, and you'll find out what they are. And if I'm sort of not sure what I need to put into my portfolio, I might go back and reference that, and then do some brainstorming in my sketchbook and think about maybe building a collection. Hi everyone, and thanks for the opportunity for this wonderful interview. And I am Imogen Joy, and I'm an illustrator and a surface pattern designer, and I'm based in Sydney, Australia, but I'm actually English, so I was born and raised in England and lived there for many years, but Sydney has been my home for about the last 20 years or so. Since I was a child, I grew up with a mother who was an artist, and she was also an art teacher. So I was constantly surrounded with lots of inspiration from her. And in my home environment, there was always pens and pencils, and I was drawing since I could ever remember, really. So creativity has always been a big part of my life. And I studied as well in the field. So I did a degree back in the UK at Portsmouth University, which was a kind of combined arts degree. And then later, after I came to Sydney, I did a master's degree as well, which was based in drawing and printmaking. I bumped into a friend who had been studying all about surface pattern design, and she really inspired me and sparked something. And I went and researched a bit more. I'd never heard of surface pattern design, actually. I went online and I discovered some courses that I could do, and literally within a day I had signed up for this whole course, and I basically just was delighted to find that there was something out there that I could do and probably do from home, and that I could use my creative skills for, and and make my living from. So I've only really been in surface pattern design, I would say, for about roughly 3 years, but always illustrating and always drawing for the whole of my life, really. There's the people that find their own way into art and art making, and they don't necessarily follow an art school path, and that's really wonderful as well. I think for me, I haven't come from perhaps the same background as many surface pattern designers, where they often go through the textile design route, for example, and they might study a degree which also has a lot of modules in business and how to sort of set yourself up as a freelancer. I think for me, the surface pattern design really because I studied that online with a fantastic online school that do a really comprehensive course, and it was through them that I obviously picked up all of the methods for creating your professional identity, for monetizing your work, for actually making a business and making a living from it. So those skills have obviously been invaluable for me where I am now, and I'm constantly actually going back, looking through the course notes, referencing things that I learned. And the beauty of those kinds of online courses is that you get the forums and you get the support from your classmates. You have kind of Facebook groups where you all talk together, and those sorts of connections are, I think, the most valuable way of sort of learning those skills that you need to keep going with your career. The absolute most fantastic of all surface pattern design courses, I feel, is run through the Make It in Design School. They're based out of England. Anyone from all over the world can do those courses, and there have been so many graduates of those particular courses that have gone on to be just incredible, successful designers. So I really couldn't recommend their courses highly enough, and I'm always raving about how wonderful they are. I'm one of their biggest advocates, really. But I mean, alongside that, you also need to brush up on a lot of technical skills along the way, because you don't always get every single aspect of, rendering a motif, or how to really use Photoshop or Illustrator in a more detailed way. And I think that's when you can turn to those Skillshare classes, which are really specifically honed to things like just how to use masks in Photoshop, or how to create a repeating pattern. That there's just so many like small kind of little bite-sized classes that you can just go in and out of Skillshare if there's a tiny gap in your knowledge. I actually have a very kind of vivid imagination, so I'm quite lucky in that respect. So I get actually quite a lot of my ideas just from thinking, and but I'm really inspired by a lot of particular things. One thing that inspires me a lot, and has done throughout so many years, is actually the place where I grew up in the UK, because I was based in the south of England, and I spent a lot of my childhood in Brighton on the south coast. And you can probably even see behind me, there's a picture here with the pier and the coast and the seaside. And I've constantly been really interested in those kinds of seaside motifs. I also have a 4-year-old boy, and we love reading stories. And I think the world of picture books is incredibly inspiring because of all the different sorts of unique environments you come across in picture books. And there's always just little bits of inspiration that I find in that way. We spend a lot of time outdoors in nature, especially in Sydney. It's a very beautiful city with lots of parks and coastal walks. And I find, just inspiration really in everyday life, in travel as well. We had a trip last year to Brazil, where I just photographed so many textures from the surfaces of buildings and things I found on the streets. And I often use those surfaces as kind of backgrounds in my patterns. So there's just a whole range of different places, I think, where inspiration can come from. And I think you can never be short of inspiration. I think it's just everywhere and it's all around us. I think there's just so many different ways. If you go on social media, there's constantly challenges, design challenges, illustration challenges. You can even follow those hashtags like illustration challenge or design challenge, and you'll find out what they are. And if I'm sort of not sure what I need to put into my portfolio, I might go back and reference that, and then do some brainstorming in my sketchbook and think about maybe building a collection. I might want to build a collection, for example, around the seaside, or a theme like animals or whatever it might be. And there's also there's so many things. I mean, there's days throughout the year, there's seasons like the festive season. You can aim to produce a piece or a pattern which is based on Christmas, and then base something for Easter, and then something for Mother's Day, and something for Father's Day, and so on and so on. So I think it's just building your portfolio is something that's, you have to find the way that works for you to do it. So just really think about what gaps you've got as well, and I think that naturally helps you build up your portfolio and get what you need to have in it. It's really important to make sure that I really target the sorts of companies that appeal to me as a person. I often find that companies that I love, shops that I love shopping in, and companies whose products I love, those are the kinds of companies that I aim to target. And then once I find that company, going off and doing more research on especially on their through their website, but also through LinkedIn, so that you can find out, you know, who is actually the person who's managing that company, and maybe who's the person who's the art director, or who do you actually need to approach. And then, of course, looking at their social media channels, so you can get more of a sense of their ethos, and if you like that company, and just what kinds of things they're posting. And I think that's a good way of researching. That's the way I go about finding companies, really. I sort of have a vision, which I even have I drew a picture of it and I stuck it on my wall, that, you know, one day, you know, hopefully sooner rather than later, I'd love to have my own studio, which is a sort of a studio and a shop in a beautiful, maybe seaside town somewhere. People can walk in and they can buy products with my patterns on them and my designs on them. Also meeting with people and discussing your work, and maybe even giving workshops and those sorts of things. I love that concept. My biggest dream really is that I'd love to be illustrating children's books as well. I mean, that's one of my biggest desires as well. So I definitely want to have my illustration career going alongside my surface pattern career, and hopefully one complements the other. If you want to see a bit more of my work, you can go to my homepage. It's got basically a collection of my illustrations, and so you can see illustrations. You can have a quick look there if that's what you're more interested in. There's just a collection of various different sorts of illustrations. This is the silver linings, the one I talked about, which I developed, you know, during this time as well. So there's all kinds of different illustrations, but if you're more interested in looking at the pattern designs, they're all there, and they've all been put into themes, because I love working on all these different themes. So please, you know, just feel free to have a visit and look through any collections, and I'm happy to answer questions. So thank you so much again for the opportunity for the interview. It's just been such a lovely opportunity to think and reflect and talk with you as well. So thank you so much. And to just everyone out there, I think you know, I don't have any great huge words of wisdom, but I just know how I'm so passionate about creating and drawing and illustrating and making patterns. And I just would say to anyone, if that's your dream as well, just, it sounds like a cliche, but you just really don't give up on it. Just really hold on to the dream, because you really can make it happen, but you've just got to find that determination from inside yourself, because no one's going to give it to you. So you just keep creating and keep loving what you're doing.